This is Let's Talk, so that's the name of the show. So, John McCaul, thank you very much for joining me on
Not a problem, George.
Let's Talk.
No problem.
Most people that I've been talking to, we've been looking at the areas that they're interested in and what sort of brought them to where they are now. What sort of brought you towards becoming a lecturer?
I don't know, but I always had an interest in education. I always liked studying, liked reading, liked finding out more about the world. And I thought, it'd be a good idea to try and impart this knowledge on younger people, which I've tried to do my best with my children. And I have ended up teaching sociology, a bit of politics, some English, criminology at SRC, and among other subjects which I've taught in my time as well. But all these subjects are relevant. They possibly help to empower people, give them a better awareness about the world, about what's going on, about, not believing everything you read in the Sun or the Daily Star or the Daily Express, going beyond different areas and, disseminating information to themselves and being able to speak confidently on any number of issues.
So sociology is the area that you sort of mainly teach. And,
it is, yeah.
I teach media, and I've come from that same sort of background. So what do you think are the important features within sociology that we should use to read today's world?
Well, do you know, first of all, why I wanted to become a sociology teacher?
No, tell us a little bit about that.
Right, well, it's quite simple. I had done sociology at university, and I did it at teacher training college as well. But Kenneth Baker, you remember him?
Yes, yeah.
Kenneth Baker, in one of his statements, I think it was in the House of Commons, and he said that or in an off-guard moment, I can't remember, but he's on record as saying that, sociology was a dangerous subject, and if he had the power, he would withdraw it from the curriculum. And I thought to myself, yeah, that's a good enough reason as any to be a sociology teacher. If it's hurting the Tories, great.
Well, we've been looking at things like propaganda and then what became public relations. And I know that a lot of the texts come from around about the end of the First World War, where they began to realise that using propaganda they could get people to go to war. And then in peacetime they thought, well, let's call it public relations. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, well, your country needs you. And, General Kitchener, you remember? Or Kitchener.
Yeah.
Way back, who was Irish, by the way.
Okay.
And sank in the Lusitania, and died when the Lusitania sank. And that was quite a famous postcard and picture of you recruiting. There were quite a lot of World War I recruiting, remember little Belgium and this. That one was telling the Catholic people of Ireland to go out and vote. So it was coming from Redmond and that, But I was lucky enough to teach Access English a couple of years back. And we used, I don't know if it's still up or not, but it was very, very good. It was a Wilfred Owen interactive website. Are you familiar with that?
I'm familiar with Wilfred Owen, but not so much the website.
Well, the interactive website, and that had World War I postcards on it. And one of our assignments was based around, what did you do in the war, Daddy, that sort of thing. And they also had the German postcards on it as well. And I find that very interesting. Like, that was really PR at the time. And then, of course, Second World War, it expanded a bit, and you had Germany calling with the Irish-born Lord Ha-Ha. And that, so things were slightly different. I think wars now a lot of them are being fought on social media. The problem there is now I am not an expert in media in terms of sociology, George. I know enough to know which papers are pursuing which political line and so on, both in the UK and obviously in Ireland as well, and also in America. And It was very good of Trump to come up with the idea, I don't know if he did or not, fake news. You know,
Yeah.
well, his definition of fake news is news that he doesn't like, which is critical of him. That's not what fake news is.
No.
I mean, there are other news outlets out there which appear quite often on Facebook, which are fake news, which are propaganda tools. And you had the scandal a couple of months back with a company, Cambridge Analytica,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
steam people started and that. Now, if it gets to that stage, it's quite similar to identity theft, you know. I often remark to students that the likes of the Sun and the Star and the Express, I wouldn't even believe the football results in them, but that's just me.
I think what's interesting is that a lot of youngsters aren't so much aware of history. Like I teach media, and we'd be looking at kind of film studies. So you'd be looking at Charlie Chaplin, you'd be looking at Laurel Hardy, various different film, you know, the German Impressionists and all that kind of more new wave German stuff in the sort of 60s and 70s. But the youngsters aren't aware of what the icons are. Like, for example, we were looking at Pulp Fiction, and in it they talked about the Guns of Navarone.
Yeah.
And the reference was to a scene where all the characters in the Guns of Navarone were dressed up as German soldiers.
Yeah.
And David Niven was telling Gregory Peck to come off the cross and become a father because they're about to shoot, you know. But none of the students understood the references. No. And it was, so it's very difficult if they're sort of unaware of that, how this media is now impacting their lives.
It's not really pulp fiction, it's the same problem with Disney films as well. You know, if you go back to look at the anti-Semitism in Disney films, the racism and you know, obviously the domestic setups in different families and that, you know, families would have a field day, you know. But there's one film that always struck me, you know, I sometimes am asked, you know, but, you know, Marxism, socialism is dead, it's gone. And I always point them to a movie. Okay, and the movie is It's a Wonderful Life. Okay?
Yeah.
And you had Bailey's building alone. You remember George was involved in that. He didn't go to war, he went back and ran the building alone. And I give them a few minutes to think about it, you know, what is a building alone? Okay, and eventually they'll come around to the idea, oh, it's a credit union. Okay, because remember he said, remember when there was a run on it and people were looking at the money, he says, I haven't got your money, I used it to build so-and-so's house and that. Do you remember that bit, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm saying, like, that was an American idea way back in the 40s. That film was 1946, I think. And the idea of credit union has been about then, and then to sort of go into credit unions and, you know, or start to talk about credit unions and how do they work, how they're different from banks, and we'll explain that, you know. And you know, they do then get the idea that everybody's a shareholder, that if you're borrowing money, you're borrowing from someone else, you know, and that sort of idea. And, you know, they tend to think about that then, you know, so there's nobody in here profiting. I said, no, not really. You get the profit and your dividend at the end of the year and so on, you know.
We have more on the way, so please subscribe to this channel and check out the link below if you'd consider becoming a patron to help us keep making more content. Thanks for watching.